Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here again to review Archive 81. Thank you, anybody who went on and is watching any of these reviews. I might not be in thorough as detail as a number of other people. There's some people that can do this better than me, and there's some people that can do a review a lot shorter than I can. If you can even deem a video to be a review at some point, but again, I appreciate it. So, going into this episode, for those of you that have seen it and just kind of hearing clear consensuses about how you feel about a show, because that's okay, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to continue to just do this anyways. This episode gets just a little tweed bit weird, just a tweaking, just adjusting that nozzle of going into the weird side of things. We have this episode kind of come off as this, antique roadshow / Conjuring movie, where we, of course, have in the Conjuring films, where we have the one medium wife, not medium-sized wife, just medium with her power, and the father who is to have, all this collection of just obvious spirit stuff, like Annabelle and boatloads of other crap that for some reason they just collect in one room, that in some point in one movie is to kind of backfire on them and is to just spiritually just all kick off in one film, which I think was Annabelle Creations, or no, wait, one of those Annabelle films. Yeah, the not so good ones, whichever ones that was, because that was almost every single one of them, for the most point. Anyways, so pushing on. So, in this episode, we have it where there's to be this spirit receiver, is to, of course, be the title of this episode, and we have it really where we have a bunch of technical stuff that is to all be tossed around, of course, Orion's sky quests, and this is to be a bowl with teeth. Those are some pretty big teeth. I don't know about you, but I don't quite believe that that's actually human teeth. I don't believe that whatsoever. But we end up seeing this barrage of weird and wild stuff that Cassandra has just now collected for some goofy reason. And what is she giving tours? Is that her retirement? Is that how she makes her money off rent? I'm confused. So, but it seems like she's auctioning this stuff off. She's trying to give it all away, because why wouldn't she? So, we go on in this episode, and we have Melody, who is desperately trying to make people uncomfortable throughout this whole entire apartment complex. Were you guys in the community room just humming it out? Were you guys just in the community room too? Huh? Community room? Huh? And these people are just yeah, I know. I don't want to talk about that. We don't talk about what goes on in the community room. Whatever goes on in the community room stays in the community room. But I'm just going to go and mingle with somebody else over here, just because I just want to just see their face. It reflects nothing about the conversation that you and me have had. It's just I want to just go over there and just see a different person. And Melody's oh, okay, cool. Well, I'll make you uncomfortable later. So, yeah, so this episode is to be this weird kind of Melody is still trying to get answers and is to find out what the heck is really in that one cabinet thing that they were humming away to in episodes before. It seems like a lot of this episode is to be showcasing stuff from previous episode, and I'm kind of wondering if probably the stuff in this episode is going to connect into things in other episodes, to kind of see how oh my god, everything is connected, because it feels like Dan is realizing that there is a connection being put together here, and especially with this episode, it seems like we might be close to getting some kind of answers here. And so I'm assessing or assuming that probably the groundskeeper lady could have possibly been this T. Bellows, or could quite possibly have been um, any number of people from flashbacks of which had come from before. Because there has to be some reason why this old lady exists in this story. Um, but we also have it where Dan is to not be as productive as he is supposed to be, and so we're having Davenport that is starting to get suspicious of what Dan is doing here. And so Davenport is going on and wanting to seek out Mark, which I kind of figured that was going to happen anyways, and see what side Mark is on. Whether Mark is going to just be like, hey, I'd love a big fat payday. What's that, Davenport? You want to buy my building out? Right. How much money you throwing, huh? How much money? $1 million so I can easily retire? It seems like this guy has a huge amount of money because he has like two different companies that we're not even sure what exactly either commingling what any of those things really legitimately are. AKA Legacy Management Global. What the is that? So, because we really couldn't find any real information from Legacy Mobile or Management Global. So, with that said, let me know in the comments below how you've been feeling about Archive 81. Maybe you just think that this show is so weird. Maybe you've gone on and watched the whole show, and that's great because you probably watched it in one fell swoop of a thing. I've been kind of slow to the kill going into this, and I apologize. But otherwise, hey, expect these to be coming every other day, at least. This one, there's a lot going on. It feels like it's good that I don't have to do this like the following day, so that I can kind of decompress from all of this information. And so, if I forget something, if there's some detail that I don't get to, I apologize, but otherwise, I think it's about that time yet again to go into spoilers. Because really, I've kind of teed it up for this episode. I've kind of told you where this is going. So at the end of the day, if any of this feels like, oh, I didn't want to know exactly what happened in this episode, I'm sorry. My bad. My bad. So let's go into spoilers. So yeah, really let me know your consensuses. I'm not trying to go comments. I don't care. Like, really, whatever you feel is how you can spiel through any number of these comments. So go ahead and go out of your way to say that it's about that customary time yet again to go into this double 5-time territory that is to be called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you get to spoil this episode. So, in the very beginning of this episode, we have a woman that is to be Eleanor Walls. And I'm like, what is this? This feels like Evo Shandor from Ghostbusters. If you don't know who Evo Shandor is, maybe you haven't seen Ghostbusters Afterlife. Evo Shandor was an architect that was to go on and make a number of buildings that were to basically unleash a monstrous being called Gozer. And so I'm starting to feel that Eleanor Walls, probably a lot of her stuff is to all collectively have what is to really be forcing these people to do what they're doing in this building, because she has gone on to make the perfectly weird collection of things that is to all have people be headbanging, humming away, and just like, yeah. So maybe she should break up the set. Maybe after they go on and they sell all of this collection, maybe the community room will no longer be having people humming or humping via that place. Not quite sure. We'll figure that out. So we go on, and so we of course have this whole thing about Eleanor Walls, who I guess was to be, I believe, from Europe, and she was to go on and have this collection of all these items, a tuning fork, a portrait of some man. It seems like there's uh, a portrait of some man and also a portrait of Cassandra that she was to paint, because Cassandra is confirmed that that actually was Cassandra when she was much younger. And I guess with less clothes on. So we also have other things, tuning forks. We have uh, this comet pin. We also have this bowl that has teeth coming from the top of it. It seems like a bizarre thing to just have in your set piece there. Why do you need a bowl with teeth? I don't know. That just seems weird. So we go on through this collection, and really, it's to be some document kind of keeping of all of this stuff. And so now we push on, and we of course have Dan, who is to go on, and he is to go outside. Going on outside, and we have Dan calling Mark again, and Mark is kind of asking Dan, it's like, well, hey, like, about the whole Melody situation, like, how are you, like, how's it kind of going? Like, how are you dealing with all this? And Dan is just like, well, hey, like, just not right now. And, like, Dan kind of, like, answers that by hanging up the phone. And Mark is just like, well, F you, dude, for, like, trying to be nice. Trying to just, like, see where your head's at. Um, but yeah, so Dan is going on and talking to Mark, and of course wanting to get an update about things. So here's the goofy thing with this episode. Eventually Dan is to tell us that Dan was never in the Visser, and that Melody is supposedly dead. Then who the heck was the woman that Mark spoke to in the other episode that supposedly was Melody? Is this... Is Dan saying that Melody's a ghost for some odd reason? And she's not really a ghost? I'm so confused. Uh, so it's like, who is the person? Like, maybe it's a ghost because that person actually isn't really there. Hence why Dan was saying, like, well, this isn't really happening, right? You're not really talking to me. Because Dan is to say that Melody is some ghost. I'm kind of wondering if possibly it's the other way around. Maybe there's a reason why Dan. Maybe this is some weird outer limits stuff. Where all of a sudden we're going to find out, instead of really Melody being the ghost here, maybe Dan is. Maybe we're going to find out, like, again, Dan has been dead all along, kind of thing. Maybe we're going to find that out about Dan. But I don't know. We'll figure that out. So we go on, and we have Dan who's out in this forest, and all of a sudden Melody just arrives. And so Dan is talking to Melody, and all of a sudden that is to have Dan in this forest talking to Melody, and all of a sudden day has turned into night. We have the groundskeeper that is to come back to Dan and is to now and is to now tell Dan that it's 8 o'clock at night. And Dan is like, okay, where did the hours go? And the groundskeeper is like, I don't know, I just found you kind of just standing in the middle of this forest. Like, I guess maybe you've been standing there for hours. Not quite sure, because there's not cameras out here. It's not a camera feed. So Dan goes into the facility to go and have a phone ringing off the hook. All of a sudden, it's Davenport. Davenport goes on in his to talk about he used to have this paper route. And so every day at 4 or something in the morning, Davenport would have to go and meet the Gazette and get his papers to do his paper route. And every single time he had to go and do that, he did that so perfectly to where everyone was to get their papers by the day was out. And that Davenport is like, well, yeah, because I like consistency. I like to be able to consistently do that same job every single time. And so, Dan, you didn't upload anything today. What's up with that? So Dan is like, well, I lost track of time. And so Davenport's just like, well, like, okay, like I paid you to do this job. I think the payout is going to be pretty substantial, but paraphrasing here. So we have Dan who's behind the gun here, and so he goes off because he was also trying to get into this basement, and we have, of course, Dan that is to be sending Mark a thing of information here about whether Mark can be able to just hack through this door. Seems kind of weird, because Dan is trying to break through this glass, and it's bulletproof glass. It seems like somebody doesn't want somebody to get into this room, and so that's what Dan was calling Mark about, was about that door, and if Mark could get somebody to hack through this door. And so we go on and we have Dan who goes and does one of the tapes. And so now we go on and have Melody and Jess who are talking about things. Jess is going and mentioning to, or Melody's mentioning to Jess about, like, hey, do you need anything? Do you need some Enya? Do you need some bird songs? Like, what could I do to help you? Because, of course, before a little bit of rebuttal, Jess had gone on to get exorcised, and Samuel was to arrive to stop all this and was to put an end to it. And that was the one thing that I forgot about the last episode, was Samuel stepped in. So now Melody is just trying to, like, win over Jess and still trying to be her friend here. And so Jess goes on and is mentioning what she's going to do for her studies, because she has homework that she has to do and she can't hang out with Melody. Mentioning about some cosmology book that is to, of course, be volume 6, and mentioning that that Jess and her mother are going to go on and check out this one telescope that they had just gotten, that was a Orion's Sky Quest. So let me pause here for 1 second. All right. So we then push on, and so we of course have it where Melody's kind of thumbing through this book, and so that just transitions us to have both Melody and Jess going on and meeting with Cassandra, and Cassandra is to supposedly be auctioning off all of Melody Walls' stuff, because I guess she had gone on to inherit it. So the same stuff that we had seen in that documentary, that video, that whatever, we're kind of seeing here again. And so, and we have Annabelle that comes in here with her camcorder later, and is to kind of look at all this stuff also. So we go on and have one point where uh, we have Melody kind of looking through all this stuff, the tuning forks, and so on and so forth. Of course, the only thing that Melody's really interested in is the one wooden cabinet. That, of course, is to have that sculpture inside of it that the people were humming it out to in episode 2. So we have it where Melody is asking if Cassandra can open uh, this wooden cabinet thing up, and Melody's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I lost the key." It's like, well, did you lose the key, or are you just not wanting to just go on and talk about it? Because we have Melody, who again is to ask Cassandra about the whole community room, and Cassandra just doesn't, just like as if Melody never asked that. So we go on and we're looking at the portrait of Cassandra as she was a much younger girl. And so all of a sudden we go on and see or realize that Melody is to notice that Melody is seeing Cassandra's necklace and noticing that it's like, oh, is that the same necklace from the picture? And she's like, well, yeah. So this necklace, I guess, is to be special, and I guess it's from a comet. It's like, okay. I've seen several superhero shows and movies and whatever that deal with a person in a comet. I've seen Meteor Man. I've seen, God, what is it? The origins of Randall Savage, where he becomes like an immortal character from DC comic books. And I've seen a number of things where if someone is to keep a comet or a meteor or something like that and keep it close to them for far too long, they end up becoming an alien or a monster or something. So, can't wait for that. So, we have Cassandra here, who is to also have this jar of of paint, this black like comet paint, and I guess we had Eleanor who used to go and paint paint this, and like, man, this is coming off to be like some Ghostbusters in this story. Like, I'm just waiting for anybody who's to use this paint to all of a sudden have a spirit come out of their painting and attack people. Like, I'm just waiting for that to happen. I'm waiting for some like Velvet Buzzsaw stuff coming out of this show now, where all of a sudden like a painting that is to usher in Vigo the Carpathian or something from Ghostbusters 2. Uh, that's what I'm expecting. Like I'm expecting a painting to attack somebody now, because it's a weird, goofy thing. So we go on and we have Jess go and take this paint to go and give this to Annabelle, and so Melody and Annabelle are to go back into that room with Cassandra, and so we of course have Amanda who's looking at these teeth bowls and like, oh, that's weird, and it's to go through all of this stuff, and so Melody is to ask Cassandra about Julia's deadbeat mother, Julia Bennett, and if she knows anything about this person. And Cassandra's like, doesn't sound familiar. So it seems that since like these girls are spending so much time with them, it seems that they are to be ushered into this party that's going on in this apartment. So So after we go on and we have, because after they go and talk to Sandra about this whole Julia Bennett thing and that goes nowhere, we go on and have them leave, and all of a sudden Samuel is to bump into these girls again. And so Melody is to kind of thank Samuel for him kind of butting in about that whole thing the night before with the old exorcism thing. And Samuel's like, well, hey, I should have done it sooner. Excuse me. But, like, it is what it is. So, but we also go on and have Annabelle asking Samuel really just about him and Tamra going at it. And Samuel's like, well, like, she was my ex-lover, and like we had gone on to drink too much alcohol, and one thing led to another. And it's really not like Samuel and Tamara or Samuel and Melody were all that exclusive at that moment, but maybe Melody somehow was just hurt. And so Samuel, after that kind of that explanation, like, it kind of feels that maybe Melody may give Samuel a second chance, but after that whole humming away like thing, and it seems like Melody can't really get answers out of Samuel as well as anyone else, then what would really be the point of going on and continuing a relationship with Samuel? But I'm sure Samuel is going to consistently keep trying to go on to uh, maybe entice Melody at some point, try to win her over, so on and so forth. So, so that so that leads us to this later on party, and I'll put a pin in that, and we'll get to that because it's pretty freaking wild. So I want to cover that for last. Uh, so we now have Davenport showing up at Mark's podcast before he's to go on, and so Davenport is now asking Mark here to, like, hey, can't we be both on the same side? How much is this building? How about you figure out a price and you can sell it to me because I want to own you. Like, Davenport feels like he is to own everybody. So, and Mark is to say that, hey, this building isn't for sale. Uh, Evidently, Mark's dad is to own this building, and basically, Davenport should just F off. So, we go on and we have Davenport that is desperately wanting Mark on his side. And he's just like, no. Because he wants answers just like Dan does. Mark, of course, is asking Davenport why is it that he is having Dan have this huge chunk of change to put forth on this school project and recover all this footage. It makes no sense. Why is Davenport going out of his way to want these answers? What does Davenport think he's going to find? And Davenport's not going to answer that because he's like, well, all that stuff is confidential. Mark would have probably said, well, of course it is. Of course it's confidential. Like, you want me on your side, but you don't want to give me any leeway or anything that is going to entice me to partner up with you. So, but hey, let's partner up here. Let's be friends. You're not going to let him in on anything? Okay, great. But we have a word Davenport is going on and saying to Mark, it's like, well, you know what, I'm kind of worried about Dan's mental health right now. Like, I'm kind of worried that he may not get the job done. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what's your thoughts on it? Kind of thing. Like, kind of, like, does Davenport need to be worried about what is going on with Dan and maybe he should go and hire another person to do this job. So we really go nowhere with these two characters at the end of it. Davenport is to give Mark his card, just like, here you go. And so Mark is, at the end of this episode, after talking to Dan, looking at the card at the end of this episode. So we also go on and have Dan that is kind of making his way through this facility and is to all of a sudden see Melody again. And so this time around, we of course have Melody, who is thumbing through these notebooks, mentioning some soap opera stuff that someone is to write down upon these pages. And so Melody's asking Dan if he was to have written in this notebook, and Dan's like, no, I just found that there. So we also had a moment where Melody was to give Dan this little box that had these tape pieces into it. And so now we can understand why Dan went on to go to that one kind of flea market's shop to go and buy a bunch of VHSs that really had nothing on it, or just had like tennis matches or whatever. And the guy was like, well, yeah, I guess that's just what it was. My bad. Because I guess Dan is to go and do that because of his father. Because I guess his father used to do that too. Used to go onto flea markets and buy certain tapes and find things like Flash Gordon or Jason and the Argonauts or a number of other old-fashioned movies that people will probably want to go on and see to this day because they're still good. So we go on, and of course we have, at some point here, where the one thing that I think I messed up before with the whole, like, it's a feature, it's not a bug. I forgot the beginning part of that whole thing, but now I can go and clean that up from before because they reiterate that here. So, and I still don't know how all of this is all 100% all connected, but we'll figure that out once we further go on into every single episode. And plus, that whole Melody thing of, like, Melody is technically alive, but is she? Are we in some kind of dimensional bubble of a thing where, like, is Melody Schrodinger's cat, where she may be alive and she may be dead, or she may be both? We won't know until the very end of this show, where Dan finally goes and meets up with Melody when she's still alive and knows all of this and knows that Dan is going to rescue her from the future. It's weird, I guess, a little time travel, or kind of like, this is gonna get to the point of probably Frequency here. If anybody knows that Dennis Quaid Frequency movie, they ended up doing a show about it later on, but like, this is almost kind of feeling like the Dennis Quaid movie Frequency, weirdly. So all of a sudden, Dan is to go on, and after talking to Melody about these notebooks and talking about how Dan's father was Melody's therapist, and Melody's like, wait, that doesn't make sense, because like, you should be way younger. And Dan's like, no. We also had some weird, bizarre-ish moment where a younger Dan was talking to his sister and also talking about ghosts, how someone could be lost and this and that. And, like, I think we're starting to get an idea of what this could possibly be. That we could have it where there's this weird kind of gray area here of that these tapes might be a spirit receiver, or maybe the items that, maybe in this case, maybe the tapes are to be a spirit receiver. And maybe somehow some of Melody's spirit has gotten caught into these tapes. Not quite sure. Well, something has to be some kind of spirit receiver in here. Could it be the tapes? Could it be any number of things? Could it be the necklace? Because the necklace was technically there at that location. Because we justify that later on in the episode. So Dan goes on and finds these notebooks and is to find there's to be one notebook with a bunch of numbers listed on it, and there's one that ends up getting circled. And so Dan is like, oh my god, this might be the combination to get into this room. Maybe that's what he spent numerous hours trying to do. T. Bellows. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So Dan goes and figures out the combination and gets into this room and is going on to see his own father's file. So Dan goes and calls Mark again and is to tell Mark what his father really was working on. Some supernatural-esque like case. And that it could be possible that Stephen could have been a part of this cult, like Cassandra was, like Samuel was, probably like how Davenport probably is. And so there probably has to be that connection. It's the only thing that probably makes sense at this point. So maybe that Stephen wasn't a real true believer in religion, but maybe he found a spiritual belief of sorts. Who knows? Probably by the end of the show, we'll probably figure that out. So we then go on and have Dan go and watch the tape of this whole party, having it be that Jess was forced to come to this party because Cassandra was desperately wanting some young girl or some young person to come to this party to just kind of like change it up and not have so many certain kind of people there. So we go to this party, and of course we have Melody, who's asking people who went to the community room, hey, community room, humming it out, what were you guys trying to do there? So we go on and we have Melody, who is to find this little thing to try and pick the lock of this cabinet, and Samuel is to go and like, haha, I have the keys. So he unlocks the thing and is to show the sculpture that Melody was interested in. And so Cassandra is to say that it was a self-portrait or a self-sculpture. So I'm like, wait a minute. So is the thing that's inside here, could that be a spirit receiver of Eleanor Walls? Is that the possibility? That Eleanor was to infuse herself maybe into this sculpture? Who knows? By the end of the episode, we probably should. And probably a lot of people make their own consensuses and whatever, if they haven't already seen the show and whatever, like, no, it was so-and-so all along. Great. So, it was Davenport. He's in the sculpture, humming away at people. So, we go on and we have this party kicking off, and everybody's uncomfortable because Melody's here with her camcorder. So, all of a sudden we have Evie Crest who appears, and Dan is, I just bit my tongue, And Dan is to say, "Oh, I know her. Like I recovered her movie. She must have finally found it after taking so much time of Cassandra in this episode going like, "Where's that movie? Where's the circle? I want to know where it is." Who cares? It was a canceled film. So Evie Crest comes in here, and we have them going on and on and on about how Evie Crest had a famous father, William Crest, and that one girl was to have a movie that she liked from Evie's father. I think it was like Phasmophobia, Phantasm. Phantasm is an actual movie, but it sounded something like that. So, and he was like, well, yeah, like he did that one movie. Uh, the same girl who was to go and mention that was the girl at this party who was talking to Melody, mentioning that I guess soap operas weirdly talk to her, and she has to record what all they're saying because she feels that she can get some kind of connection that like she's trying to figure out or like decode soap operas. I guess that's what those notebooks were from weirdly like maybe that was another thing that they kept from the Viscera was that girl's crazy notebooks. So we go on and we have Evie Crest who uh we weirdly just have Cassandra just like adamant about that whole circle movie. And so Evie is to, of course, be like, well, like, yeah, that was a canceled film, and I have no clue where it is. So all of a sudden, Cassandra's like, well, how about we go on and have Reyes here go and, like, see if we can, like, channel the ghost of your father and see if we can find the combination of the safe and also find out where that movie is. God, that is a reference from the Ghostbusters video game of like, yeah, I'm sorry, you can't call just to get the combination of the safe. Like, it's not going to work that way. Why not just break the safe? You can come up with tools to just kind of pah into the safe. Like, it can't be that durable of a thing. I've seen I don't know how many uh, like restoration shows or whatever uh, trying to go on and crack open a safe. Like, there's probably YouTube videos about how to crack open a safe. You should probably be able to figure it out easily. So we go on here, and so Reyes is a sit in the head of the table, and so we of course go on here and have Evie Crest or Evie that is to have some item um, to usher in her father. So because I think because they always have to give her some kind of like thing that is to like get the spirit to come out, some item. So Evie, of course, is to ask when Reyes is to turn into William about some book that she had gotten for her birthday when nobody at some birthday party was to show. Boo hoo. I don't know how many times I would go on and I would like put forth a party and no one would show. like I know it was like there was some like my graduation party when I graduated high school. Like I didn't really care about having a graduation party, but my parents were like, no, like we'll go and we'll have a graduation party and we'll make some big deal about it. And like we just turned around and like nobody came, and then I just had to go off and just go to my uncle's house anyways, because they couldn't have been bothered to stay here. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll just go to my uncle's place because I guess there's not enough people here for me justifying like having this party stay here. So So we go on and we have Evie, who is to ask what book did her father give to her, and it was to, of course, be a Dickens book, mentioning certain lines from the story and whatever. It's like, oh yeah, that book. So now Cassandra's like, okay, what about The Circle? What about the movie? And like, and Evie's just like, why in the do you care about this book so much or this movie so much? Good God, woman. That's what I would have said. So Evie's asking about the movie, and all of a sudden Reyes is to consistently say, stay away, ah! And then she loses William's spirit. So now Melody steps up to the plate, hoping that maybe Julia or Julie Bennett is to possibly be dead, and Reyes is to go on and find out that she's not. That there is to be no soul. That, of course, is to be Julie. So Julie's still alive somewhere. Don't know how, but maybe we'll find her. Maybe we'll find out that that's maybe the groundskeeper. We'll figure it out. Who is this groundskeeper? Because even if the person does have a name, we can find out that that name isn't real. We can find out like, oh, it's really just this person the whole entire time. So we can find this thing out. So all of a sudden we have it where Reyes is to go on and say, whoa, like I'm feeling something else here. So all of a sudden she is going on and getting the spirit of everything that both Dan and Melody had been talking about throughout every single last episode. Talking about the feature and the bug, talking that at some point Melody is dead, because Dan was to go on and pause at some point, and Melody again was to show up in front of Dan. And so Melody is asking Dan what he's doing, and Dan saying like, "Oh, I'm fixing a tape." He's like, "Oh, is that what you do? You're a video editor, or you're a video guy?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, something like that." So we have Dan telling Melody that, like, you know what, you're not really here, you're dead. Uh, you had died in the Visser fire. I've never been in the Visser, and so, like, you're just talking to me as a ghost. You're not really here. And Melody's like, what are you talking about? Because all of a sudden Melody is to find out that Dan has her notebook and has her necklace. And Melody's like, how do you have all this stuff? Because you've been dead the whole time, Melody. You're Bruce Willis. Realize that, Melody. You're Bruce Willis. She's like, no, I'm the other character in the movie. I see dead people. I'm that kid. I'm the other one. I'm the other white meat. No, you're Bruce Willis, Melody. I'm sorry. The Sixth Sense for you. Anyways, so we go on, and so all of a sudden, Melody is to vanish here, and Dan goes on and is to realize that there's a way for him to help Melody in the past, either through Reyes or maybe through these dreams, to convince her that this building is going to burn down and that she's not safe there, so she should leave to stay alive. So Dan is running off to go and tell Mark this, and Mark is, of course, hearing Dan out, and he sounds like a loon. He sounds like a lunatic. And so we have Mark kind of looking at that Davenport car, just going like, maybe Dan is crazy. Maybe he's losing his mind. Maybe he should stop doing this project. It just seems that like Dan isn't the right person for the job. Excuse me. So really, in this episode is getting really interesting. But here's also the thing. We're gonna finish up here with this one. So holy crap. I didn't realize how late this was already talking about this video because there's a lot of stuff to talk about, a ton. So all of a sudden we have Reyes, who again is to repeat all this stuff. Then all of a sudden she's like tearing through her skin. She's just like, I'm like, oh my god, this episode is getting freaking wild. And so now you go on, we have like the ambulance getting called, and like Reyes is like getting freaking bandaged all over her face because she's like bleeding out through her face, and I think her like hands are being like tied down so she won't go her face. I'm like, oh my god, this is a crazy ending. I was just waiting for some going on, but no, like we just had some yeah. So Melody is going on and trying to talk to Reyes. I'm sure she's probably sedatived and knocked out and whatever, so she won't be like, yeah. So, yeah, you aren't going to be getting any answers out of Reyes anytime soon, I don't think. Maybe she's going to probably be in a coma, not quite sure. But yeah, so, you know what? If that would have been the one moment to start that fire, that would have made a whole lot of sense for all of a sudden somebody knock over a candle, the house goes ablaze, and boom, that's would have been where the fire happened. But no, it just doesn't happen that way. So yeah, Melody was trying to seek out answers and she couldn't get any. So Melody goes back to see Annabelle, and Annabelle's just drawn away with this comet paint, and she's drawing this picture of this person that she's seeing in this paper weirdly. And so Dan is looking at this painting, and it seems that we're going and seeing some ghost in the machine here. We're seeing possibly that maybe all this comet stuff is maybe attracting this spirit here. Not quite sure 100%, but I think I'm going to get out of here so I can wrap this up. Let me know in the comments below. Unless you've kind of seen every episode, then probably don't go ahead and spoil it. I'd really appreciate it. But either way, I could just say, I could go with or without spoilers because really, But anyways, uh, enjoying the show. It kind of gives me a random barrage of things, and so like it's interesting to have like a supernatural show because it's been a while since I've had any kind of real like interesting supernatural stuff, because a lot of it is just like, oh, here's another vampire movie, here's another werewolf show, here's another thing that is also like not making you think. It's just like, okay, here's a monster, kill it and be done with it. So I like how this is kind of a mystery to be solved possibly, or conclusions to be had, or a lot of dumb ideas of which that I am to probably have through a review or show or whatever. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.